India's quiet dance with the Taliban marks a seismic shift in South Asian geopolitics. From once backing their enemies to now hosting their leaders, New Delhi's strategy signals cold pragmatism over past ideology. As Pakistan fumes and alliances shift, India's gamble in Kabul could redraw the region's power map or ignite new fault lines. India's engagement with the Taliban has raised eyebrows across the region, and for good reason. Once seen as a bitter adversary, the Taliban are now being treated as Afghanistan's legitimate government by New Delhi. Taliban Foreign Minister Amir Muttaqi's recent visit to India, despite being on the UN sanctions list, highlights a pragmatic shift in India's foreign policy. Delhi granted him a travel exemption, allowed him to hold press conferences at the Afghan embassy in New Delhi, and even shared the stage with India's own Foreign Minister, S. Jaishankar. This outreach is not happening in a vacuum. Recent regional developments have created a sense of strategic urgency for India. Earlier this year, India faced direct military tension with Pakistan, while China's growing support for Islamabad, Russia's lukewarm stance, and the US embrace of Pakistan left New Delhi with fewer trusted partners across the subcontinent. In such a scenario, Afghanistan becomes crucial geographically, economically, and strategically. Delhi's policy is increasingly driven by pragmatism rather than ideals. While human rights concerns persist, India has demonstrated a willingness to engage with whoever holds power in a given country. From Myanmar to Russia, Iran to Israel, New Delhi has consistently prioritized national interests over ethical considerations. Recognizing the Taliban as Afghanistan's official government aligns with this approach. The Pakistan factor makes this engagement even more consequential. Islamabad fears that closer India-Afghanistan ties could weaken its influence over Kabul. For the Taliban, deepening relations with India provides leverage against Pakistan, especially as border tensions flare along the Durand Line. India, meanwhile, sees an opportunity to secure trade and economic access to Central Asia, strengthen historical ties with Afghanistan, and establish a strategic foothold on Pakistan's western flank. In short, Delhi and Kabul are following the adage, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," while Islamabad views the partnership as a threat to its regional interests. By hosting Muttaqi, India may be reshaping the balance of power in South Asia, signalling that strategic pragmatism now outweighs historical grievances or ideological considerations. As tensions rise along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, India's careful engagement with the Taliban is a calculated move, one that prioritizes influence, regional leverage, and the long-term goal of counterbalancing Pakistan. Whether this strategy will pay off or draw backlash remains to be seen, but India's approach marks a new chapter in South Asian geopolitics. India's engagement with the Taliban has been deliberate, cautious, and strategic. Since the Islamist group seized power in 2021, New Delhi has tiptoed toward reopening communication, first through humanitarian aid, then by re-establishing a technical mission in Kabul in 2022. Dr. Kshitij Bajpai, Senior Research Fellow for South Asia at Chatham House, analysed the move as marking a major geopolitical shift.
These developments are part of New Delhi's efforts to reset its relations with the Taliban and mark a notable shift in the region's geopolitics. Historically, India has viewed the Taliban with hostility, given the group's extremist ideology and its close affiliation with the Pakistani military and intelligence establishment.
Historically, India backed the Northern Alliance against the Taliban during the late 1990s civil war and supported the Western-backed government after the 2001 US invasion. But shifting tectonics in Asia, a China-Pakistan military nexus, Russia's muted response during the 2025 India-Pakistan conflict, and Washington's renewed ties with Islamabad, have forced Delhi to recalibrate. Cut off by rivals on almost every border, India sees Afghanistan as a potential strategic partner on Pakistan's western flank, a nation that might once again serve as a geopolitical counterweight rather than a security risk. This pragmatic approach reflects India's broader foreign policy evolution, prioritising national interest over ideology. It mirrors Delhi's past engagement with the Myanmar junta, its neutrality on the Ukraine conflict, and its careful balancing between Iran and Israel. Officials emphasise that India's goal is to engage with de facto powers to ensure regional stability, rather than endorse any political ideology. Behind India's calculated outreach to the Taliban lies the Pakistan factor. Relations between Islamabad and the Taliban, once allies, have sharply deteriorated. Pakistan now accuses Afghanistan of harbouring Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan fighters who have launched deadly raids across the frontier. Kabul, in turn, lashes back, accusing Pakistan of airstrikes and cross-border shelling. These eruptions come amid a deeper war of narratives, something India is carefully watching. In his October 16th press briefing, MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal sharply called out Pakistan's policies.
Your question and the developments that are happening on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, we are closely monitoring the situation. Three things are clear. One, that Pakistan hosts terrorist organizations and sponsors terrorist activities. Two, it is an old practice of Pakistan to blame its neighbors for its own internal failures. And three, Pakistan is infuriated with Afghanistan exercising sovereignty over its own territories. India remains fully committed to the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of Afghanistan.
That blunt assessment underscores how India sees the Afghan-Pakistan conflict, not as someone else's quarrel, but as part of a larger security equation directly affecting Delhi's interests. For Islamabad, the idea of Delhi and Kabul aligning is alarming. A partnership between the two, both historically hostile to Pakistan's military, could upend Pakistan's long-standing strategy of maintaining strategic depth in Afghanistan. For Delhi, however, an Afghanistan less dependent on Pakistan and more open to Indian economic and diplomatic influence could be a long-term game changer. Still, not everyone in India welcomes this engagement. Critics point to the Taliban's record on women's rights and religious intolerance, questioning how aligning with such a regime fits India's democratic image. Analysts like Ajay Shukla, a journalist and retired Indian Army colonel, warn that India must remember the Taliban's history before rushing into partnership.
Dragging former President Najibullah out of the UN compound, the vengeful Taliban tortured him to death and hanged him from a lamppost. For Kabul's shocked citizenry, this was the introduction to the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan.
By hosting Amir Khan Muttaqi, reopening its mission, and speaking bluntly about Pakistan's old practices, Delhi has positioned itself as a new player in a space long dominated by others. For the Taliban, whose ties with China and Iran remain cautious and whose border with Pakistan is on fire, India now looks like an alternative diplomatic lifeline. The implications are profound. In the evolving triangle of Delhi, Kabul and Islamabad, a new geopolitical alignment may already be underway, one where old enmities give way to colder strategic calculations. Whether this bet pays off or backfires will depend on how both India and the Taliban navigate the fragile terrain between pragmatism and principle. But one thing is certain. By restoring its mission in Kabul, India has reinserted itself squarely into the Afghan story, and once again, South Asia's fault lines are shifting beneath its feet.